Alan Wake 2, the sequel to Remedy Entertainment's classic third-person thriller, finally released 13 years after the first game. Presented with an enthralling atmosphere, dreamlike setting, and immersive gameplay, Remedy delivers its finest game to date.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Combined with its mysterious storytelling, it will surely pull players deeper and deeper as they go. Join us here at Game8 Reviews as we dive into the mysteries of Alan Wake 2. This is the video adaptation of our Alan Wake 2 review article on Game8. Check the full review link below. The game has you hit the ground running as we follow FBI agent Saga Anderson investigating a string of grisly murders in the town of Bright Falls. But not all is as it seems, as Anderson finds herself in the middle of a supernatural horror story. One with the crime novelist Alan Wake, who went missing 13 years ago, being at the center of it all. And from here, it just gets weirder and weirder. Although Alan Wake 2 is the sequel to the original Alan Wake, it is set up to be able to live as a standalone experience. This means you can definitely play Alan Wake 2 without having any experience or knowledge of the previous game. But while it's not necessary, returning players will be treated to an abundance of connective lore and Easter eggs to discover.
You're mistaking me for someone else. If you say so.
The way the story develops in the game is like a trail of breadcrumbs. You'll investigate clues, talk with NPCs, and make analyses of the case at hand. It'll make you feel like a real investigator with how you have to piece together the evidence yourself. But just that is not enough, as you'll need to keep the bigger picture in mind and think about how certain pieces figure, not only in one case, but in even larger cases as well. There's a great many of them too, just from Anderson's perspective, and all of them will make you wander through Bright Falls just to get the evidence you need and crack the case. The thing that makes this game different from any other investigatory game is the dual narrative at play. One logical and organized, while the other runs on dream logic. These two narrative threads meet together and overlap, producing a surreal experience. Once you get into the dark place with Wake, things get more interesting. By the time you reach that though, you're probably already hooked and won't be able to stop. You might even feel the need to play the game all the way through in one sitting just to know how it ends. We don't have to fill you in with the details. You'll be hunting for them yourself. Some players may get a bit impatient with the beginning of Alan Wake 2. Playing as another character entirely isn't exactly a new concept, but it takes roughly 3 hours for the titular Alan Wake to show up in a playable form, and such a delayed introduction might be a bit too long. One would think that Wake would play a more central role in his own game right from the get-go, but that isn't the case. It's not a big deal though, considering how it plays.
Somehow I was closer to home, closer than ever before.
The game has a great blend of investigation, storytelling, and combat. Aside from the atmosphere, Alan Wake 2 really makes an effort to present the minds of both Anderson and Wake. Both characters have different ways of thinking and different ways of perceiving the world around them. When you play as either of them, you quickly get a sense of who's more logical and more organized, and who's more scattered but insightful. While investigating, clues are highlighted and easy to pick up. They are then digested for the player in an easy-to-understand way via the mind plays, before being used to explain how the plot moves forward with this information. In Anderson's mind plays, she methodically gathers clues, organizes them on a case board, lines them up neatly, and makes her analysis. Combining these analyses gives her a breakthrough. Sometimes Anderson will have to sit down and profile her subjects, try to get into their minds, and they'll reveal clues that she would have otherwise never gotten her hands on by simply relying on logic. We don't want to reveal too much about how Alan Wake's own plot board works, but let's just say he's a lot less fixed to logic compared to Anderson, being a writer and all that. Not too illogical though. Just like in Alan Wake 1, his story has to be consistent with his own internal logic. The result is that we get a glimpse at how our lead characters think, and this allows us to be more interested in how their stories go. Along the way though, you'll have to defend yourself. It's similar to how it was in the original 2010 game. Light up your enemies with a flashlight and shoot them once their shield is down. In Alan Wake 2 though, the combat is a lot like modern survival horror games with an emphasis on ammo conservation and deft maneuvering. However, it can get a bit wonky at times. The problem is the lack of clues or indicators to help you anticipate enemy attacks. Unlike in some other games where players are given visual and audio cues to dodge or defend, players in Alan Wake 2 must manually track enemies and time their dodges. This can be difficult, especially in confined spaces. Since you're controlling the camera manually, if you don't have the camera pointed at the enemy and they make an attack, then your only option is to pretty much press a dodge button and pray the attack doesn't connect. It doesn't help that it's tough to keep track of enemies when you're healing either. What results from this is a combat that feels somewhat clunky, and you'll somewhat feel helpless in combat. And while feeling helpless in a game like this seems appropriate, this didn't feel like it was because of an intentional game design, but rather a design shortcoming. To be clear, we're not saying this isn't an intentional thing. Dreams can be rather disorienting at times, and Alan Wake 2 wants to achieve that dreamlike state. However, it can get a bit too much, especially if you're battling a particularly tough enemy, and it's raining, and there's a myriad of visual effects going off on screen. There was this particular battle that seemed to take place in a forest that looped on and on, perhaps with the help of procedural generation. It wasn't easy to get our bearings, and the darkness of the whole place coupled with the visual effects made it dizzying to look at. It just didn't seem like a well thought out level design. If all of this was intentional, perhaps Remedy can ease up in this regard. Remedy Entertainment's Northlight engine does a stellar job of bringing Bright Falls and its denizens to life, using beautiful lighting, multiple visual tricks, and an art style that's both immersive and realistic. The environments are also well designed, from Cauldron Lake and its surroundings to downtown Bright Falls. No other title can give you a more accurate looking slice of eerie Americana. Most of the tracks in Alan Wake 2 range from the atmospheric to the dreamlike and creepy. They have this quality of presenting the game, even the real bits of it, as kind of a waking dream. Not exactly enough of a nightmare to terrify you, but enough to unsettle and keep you on your guard. The voice acting is also great, especially by those who performed the roles of Saga Anderson and her partner Alex Casey.
I'd love to blame this on mass hallucination caused by inhaling volcanic gas, but we both know that's bullshit. This was supernatural.
Well, I'm glad you were the one to say it.
The graphics and audio can live as individual aspects of a game, but if you're able to tie both of them, sending them both in a certain direction the right way, what you have then is an immersive atmosphere. Alan Wake 2 has been able to achieve this, and the result is a deep, foreboding, continuous sense of dream verging on nightmare. From the very beginning of the game, there's already a sense of the dreamlike and reality bleeding together, with the grittiness of the murder you're investigating juxtaposed with the intrusion of the dark presence. The game is like a descent into madness, and the atmosphere reflects that with the dark grays with stark reds in the distance signifying danger. The white light from overhead lamps indicates safety, and the chaotic darkness that acts like, as the game calls them, opposite of sunspots in your eyes, covers the enemies. The surrounding blur and swirl in the air become fuzzy until you focus your eyes on them. The atmosphere stays for the most part, keeping you in that dreamlike state. Even when you get into the more surreal areas of the game, the atmosphere never really gets too fantastical or too realistic. It undoubtedly occupies the gray area between reality and the dark place, the so-called overlap in the game where reality and unreality blend into each other. Remedy has outdone itself. In maintaining a consistent and eerie atmosphere in the game, players leave feeling like they've gone through a continuous waking dream, just like the characters within it. Game8 Reviews gives Alan Wake 2 a 9 out of 10. The game makes a strong impact as an engaging sequel to the original title. Its exceptional graphics, audio elements, and atmosphere grip the player as they traverse its myriad of mysteries, keeping them guessing on the edge of their seats until the end. Although the game could be made into a less disorienting experience, Alan Wake 2 has all the hallmarks of a thrilling psychological adventure. Alan Wake 2 is set at a base price of $60, and in exchange you are thrown into more than a decade-old mystery where there are many cases to solve, mysteries to uncover, and secrets to unlock, all surrounding a gripping, mysterious, and psychological tale. If you want to experience one of the best survival horror games this year, then Alan Wake 2 is definitely worth the price tag. Be sure to check out our full review article for Alan Wake 2 at our website, linked in the description below. Tune in for the next one.